Hello everybody, hopefully today I'm going to be answering a few questions on general after skirmish maintenance on the KJW KC02. Basically all I'll be going over is just the routine cleaning and maintenance, and basically what you need to do after your skirmish with your gun. Having a look on YouTube, there isn't very many videos going into like what you need to do to clean one of these and things like that. There's plenty of breakdown videos, but I thought I could help new owners of the KC02 in what they need to do in order to clean the gun. Same things apply to any other gas blowback rifle or pistol, for a matter of factor. And I just want to elaborate that what I'm going to do here is basically what I do. Other people out there will do things differently, use different lubricants, different methods of how they clean the gun. That's completely up to them. So if you want to add, please state so in the comments below. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to disassemble the gun, put it back down, put it to the core components that need cleaning after a skirmish, and then I'll show you what I use to clean my guns. So firstly, before we go start into breaking down the gun, what are we going to need? What I like to do when I start working on any of my guns is I have an old microfiber towel. This has seen its time cleaning my car, so now I use it whenever I work on any of my guns. So if you put a screw on here, it's not going to run away. Where if you just have a bare surface, it's just going to roll away. You could roll on the keyboard, roll on the floor, and you lose it. So trust me, if you have an old hand towel or microfiber towel, just lay it out, and it's very useful to have. Next cleaning bits and pieces, you may want some cotton buds, as we call them here in England, or if you're American, Q-tips. Just some kitchen towel. Lubricants I use is mainly the Abbey stuff. You've got the silicone gun oil, which is the thinner, more runny. This is in a dropper bottle, and then you've also got the gun grease, which is your usual thick grease. Now, before you all start shouting at me, I use some all-purpose silicone cleaner, silicone lubricant, should I say, mainly for cleaning exteriors. You can use this on some metal to metal or metal to plastic applications, but I do not recommend using this on your O-rings because like say WD-40, some other automotive brands out there, it will probably contain petroleum, which will rot and destroy your O-rings, and that's not what you want to do. The whole point of this maintenance is to stop that from happening. So I've been using this stuff for 3 years, ever since I started playing, for just the general exterior cleaning of the gun, etc, etc, and it works fine. I don't get any problems using this stuff whatsoever. Because I'm in the motor trade, I do like a bit of brake cleaner. This stuff is very good for breaking down grease and removing it, whether you spray a bit onto your Q-tip, or as you'll find out later, or just onto the cloth and just rub down. It will just breaks down and get rid of all the dust, grime and grease. You can just use this also, just because it's in a spray can, you can just use it to blast out certain components. I do not recommend getting this on anything rubber, because what brake cleaner does is if it gets onto certain rubber components, it will just balloon the components up, and then it just destroys them. So, and depending on some hot rubber material or even the O-rings, it might balloon them up and they become completely unusable and you have to throw them away. So that's the last thing you want to do. In order to, some other cleaning application for the KC02, old makeup brush, or you could even use, if I've got one to hand, is a nice large soft paintbrush. This is very good for removing dust, dirt, general debris from the exterior of the gun. To break down the gun, you're going to need a small flat or Phillips screwdriver. You'll find out why shortly. You can have a pot at hand to put your bits in, And also you will require, and in typical fashion, I lost it, there we go, you need some Allen keys as well. So let's just go ahead and get organised here. So first things first, we want to get into the gun. So you are going to need one Allen key, and I can't remember if it's a 4 or a 5, we'll find out very shortly. And I'll do this awkwardly because I want to do it on here. Okay, first things first, take your magazine out, put it to one side. Normally I don't store my guns with magazines in, neither should you. Right, to remove the upper from the lower, there's 2 screws holding the gun together. One here, and one here. So you want to take your Allen key, and it is a 4mm, pop it open. There is a, as it goes flying out, there is also a spring washer there. Spring washers are mainly used to keep the bolts tight once they're done up, so they don't undo from vibrations. So keep that with your bolt. Now we're going to turn it over and undo this one here. It's very awkward because normally whenever I work, I like to work in my lap, as daft as it sounds, because it keeps it all close together for me. I don't know how we all work differently. Okay. So same again, this one will have a spring washer on the bottom of it. Sometimes I like to get jammed into the stock. There it is. Pop that out, add that to the end of the bolt. Now what you'll notice is the lower bolt, receiver bolt, is longer than the top one. Bear that in mind, you cannot put these round the wrong way. Okay, now to remove the upper from the lower, you need to take your safety and set it to the centre. Flip the gun over, and you can take the top and a bit of wiggling, and that will separate. You can now put your stock down to one side, out the way, no dramas. Right, okay, let's get them out of the way because I don't need them. Right, next bit. So you've now got your complete upper receiver. Now what you want to be doing is removing your trigger assembly from the upper. This is very easy. All that happens is basically this is held in by 2 pins at the back here. So all you've got to do is take your small screwdriver and push them through. Put them out. On the sides, trigger assembly comes off. This is one of the reasons I do love this gun, it's so easy to disassemble. Now one thing you need to make a note of is when you disassemble the gun for the first time, all of these pins are literally held in by friction. So they can, and I will demonstrate, you can move them in and out, all of these, quite happily. So just be careful. They're generally holding very, very well, and they can't go anywhere. Right, with the trigger box, I don't normally touch this for maybe 6 months to a year. It can be a little fiddly, especially if it's your first time, but these are generally, I find, lower maintenance. When you take it off, you can inspect the parts, check for wear, check its functionality, make sure it's all okay. What I like to do is a lot of the loose, the thinner grease will run around down onto the trigger box. So what I will do is, normally when I pull the gun apart, I will just wipe wipe it down. There we go. So it does tend to get everywhere, and as you use and everything manipulates, the grease does move around and spread out quite a bit. As I said, just as you work with this stuff, the pins do move around very freely, so you've got to be careful with that. So I'm going to move this to one side, because this assembling, cleaning and working on this is a whole different video, and there's quite a few videos already covering the disassembly and reassembly one of these on YouTube, so you can quite happily go watch one of them. So you can stick that to one side, don't need to worry about it. Right, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wipe down up here, flip it over, just get that wipe off. Right, next thing you want to do is get the bolt out of the upper receiver, and this is very easy to do. So you want to take your charging handle and work it back, pull it all the way back. Once it's all the way back, take your finger and gently pop out the bolt, set it down. Right, the rod and the recoil spring is all relatively free floating inside the upper receiver, so we'll pop that out in a minute. Just let that fall back forwards. So this is literally your whole bolt assembly. Get my cat hair off. This is a Roadworks CNC'd aluminium bolt, very high quality, and I do love it. And all I've done is painted one side, so I've got a whole uniform finish on my gun. This will probably, as you can see, it is wearing off. So we'll get to that in a moment. Right, to remove the charging handle, basically the recoil spring and rod is held in at the back here. It's got its own little recess, as per se. So what we can do is, it's quite literally, you can go in there with a screwdriver, or the other thing is you can go in and you just got to manipulate it, pop it out like that, and that's it. The only other thing worth mentioning, and I don't normally worry about, is in here is the bolt stop. This doesn't need to come out for your cleaning, that can stay in there. And then also you can, if you know, in here is the whole barrel, you've got the hot chamber, and you can just see the end of the hot rubber in there, but we're not going to worry about this for now. So I'm going to move the upper to one side, and we'll tackle that in a moment. So what we have here now is, and half my paint's coming off, recoil spring, the rod itself, charging handle, bolt, you've got nozzle, and then in here is your piston. This is a Roadworks / Kevin Forney aluminium piston. Right, cleaning of this. So once you've got it out, you don't need to separate it or disassemble it. Yet again, there's other videos on disassembling this. And God, there's paint everywhere now. Unfortunately, when you paint rubber components, such as my flip-up lens caps, the paint is very brittle on them. They do flake off quite easy. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our towel. All we want to do is give everything a wipe off. You can, if you wanted, use a bit of brake cleaner. So I'll actually do that now for demonstration purposes. I'm not going to use the brake cleaner on my paint because it will just rub all of that off. So go over the top of the piston, just clean it off. All you want to be doing is just checking everything, making sure there's no dirt, debris where there should be dirt and debris. Just get rid of all the old lubricant, wipe the end of the nozzle off. In the harder to reach areas, such as in here, you can use a cotton bud. I'm not American. And then what you can do as well, you can then carefully, there is a stop, move the piston, not the piston, that's the piston, the nozzle all the way forward so you can get in there. You don't want to wiggle it, pull it down, because what will end up happening is there's a return spring in here that you can see. You don't want to overstretch that. You just want to get into all the cracks and crevices, clean off the old lubricant. Ooh, don't do that, that's literally what I just said. There we go. Okay, same goes to the charging handle. Grab that, just give it a wipe off. And you can do the same on the rod. Get into all those cracks and crevices. Make it all clean. You can do, if you really wanted, give the piston a bit of a wipe off, just in case any dirt's managed to work its way in there. Okay, good. Right. Now, what I like to do is when I re-lubricate the bolt piston is I like to use the thicker grease on the piston O-ring because it hangs around for a lot longer. So here's your O-ring. This is what creates the seal in here. So what you can do, take a bit, just rub it on the top, and then same again, bit on there. In order to do it fully and give it full lubrication, you'd have to completely disassemble this. But you can work it back and forth and then it will work its way around. You can, if you wanted, add a small drop of the gun oil so it makes the grease a little thinner and then more easy to work it around. Okay, also what I do tend to like to do is use the thicker grease around these areas because the nozzle is in contact all around on the bolt carrier as well. Normally I have tend to do a bit of a mix, so I'll do a small amount of the gun oil and a little bit of this as well, just to make everything a bit looser. So we'll go ahead and do that. So I'm going to roll it forward and I'm going to apply a bit of grease up here and onto the bridge. You come round, it needs to come around the side. That way if you mix it in with a little bit of the gun oil as well, it helps just work it in to the bolt carrier. So I'm going to do a couple of small dots around here, a couple up there, and then maybe one or two there, and then work it in carefully. And then just carefully wipe off the excess. Okay, done. That's it, cleaned. Nice free moving, returns lovely, all by itself. Done, that's all it takes. Okay, now what we're going to do is clean in here, because this is where the bolt runs in and out of. And obviously as this assembly is moving back and forth, it is an open bolt system, so the whole side is open, so dirt can get in here, work its way around in here, and then it will eventually go, some of it will probably end up going down and into your barrel and then into your hop up and decrease the accuracy. Again, I'm not going to cover doing the inner barrel because there's plenty of videos out there covering how you clean an inner barrel. So what I'm going to do is take my cloth, which I'm going to use a fresh bit, a bit of brake cleaner, and then I'm going to go in, wipe off the old grease. I don't want to get the cloth down in here because that's where the hot rubber is, and as I said, last thing I need to be doing is destroying my rather expensive hot rubber. Okay, good. Right. Move that to one side, grab a cotton bud and just work the crevices, corners, the bits that your cloth can't really reach. Up here, shoulders where the charging handle runs, you want to get into the corners, get underneath the bolt stop, just push it down, then run it up and down, run it around. That's it, good. Okay, so you just get all the grease, all the crap, all the gunk. Okay, simple as. Right, next bit, basically now we're just going to reassemble it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a recoil spring and pin, rod, whatever you want to call it. We can add a couple of dots of silicone oil on here. Put it on there, run it around. We can add a little bit more later if necessary. Tilt it up. So basically this is just literally the reverse of the installation. So now what we're going to do is, this bit can be a little bit fiddly. I'm going to take it in one hand, hold the side without the circlip on, so you've got a circlip here. This bit needs to go towards the front of the gun. So you take the charging handle, make sure it's the right way around, feed it through the ejection port. Push it into the charging handle and let the charging handle rest up against the top of the receiver. And then what we're going to do is we're going to plonk it down. Hopefully I didn't make that look too easy. Plonk it down and into the recess up top there. Hopefully you can see that. And then what you might need to do, you might need to take the charging handle, wiggle it around, just basically we're just readjusting it, pushing it so it's in there. As I said, it does sit very, very freely inside the upper receiver. Okay, now what we can do is we're going to take the gun oil, we're going to add a couple of drops to the top of the upper receiver. You can see where all the wear has occurred, so that's where we want to put our oil. Also we need to put a bit up along here. Take your gun oil, hopefully 1 or 2 drops along there, because the top of the shoulder of the charging handle runs along here. Now this could be a point. This is another point where you can use a bit of silicone lubricant with the straw. Just put a couple of dots along here. It's a lot easier than having to try and guess with this. What you can do, you can also probably add maybe another drop onto your recoil spring as well. Right, now what you want to do is carefully, if it's a bit stubborn, it's not aligned on the rod, pull the charging handle back with one hand, and then you need to try and keep it down, and this is pretty difficult to try and do cack-handed for me. Take your bolt, and basically the charging handle rests in this top piece here, so that's where we need to aim it. So when it's pulled back all the way, it makes it a lot easier putting it back in. Take your bolt, rest it in at the back here with your thumb and your finger on the top of the receiver. On a wiggle, there we go, it's clipped back in. So we're just wiggling it, pushing it back in, and it's in. Easy as that. Done. It's in there. Okay? Job done. Now what you want to do, grab your trigger assembly back, plop that back in, take your 2 pins. Now what happens with the trigger box, it might sit at a funny angle, might rest slightly cack to one side, fore or aft. So what you want to do is, as you're trying to put it back in, you might just need to wiggle it around a bit just to push the pin back in. Okay, same with the front one. So it might need a bit of wiggling, might need a bit of persuasion. Sometimes I find if it's being really stubborn going in one way, try coming in the other. 9 times out of 10 it will go straight in when you go through the other way. There you go. And you can see it can come in either way, so you can literally, even though I've pushed it in this way, if you go, if it falls too hard, it can come out the other way. There's nothing stopping it from coming out from either way. Okay, and that's it. That is literally the bolt, trigger box back in. You can carefully rack it, check your operation. All good. As you can see, as you move it about, the pins like to move around. Okay, so now all we've got to do, close up our pots, stick them out of the way, like that. Grab your lower receiver, and pop it in. If you're having difficulty putting the upper receiver back in, it might be because some of the pins, whether it might be on the trigger box, on the upper for the trigger box, funny enough, has moved out of the way. So you just need to get them flush, and then obviously make sure your safety is in the middle as well. Take your upper, your lower, the long screw, put that in. It's a bit awkward with my bloody foregrip in the way. You don't need to go too mad on these bolts. That's it, good. Flip it back over and then stick the smaller screw into the back. That's it, done. As I said, you don't need to go too mad on the bolts. And there you go. All done. Everything works. It's easy as that. That's all you need to do after your first couple of games with your KC02. You can leave the cleaning for, ideally with gas guns you want to do it after every game. Especially if you're playing in a dusty area, you want to make sure it gets cleaned. If you're playing indoors, then you could probably leave it for a couple of skirmishes. But yeah, if you're playing outside in the dirt, I recommend it after every game day. As you can see, it's really quite easy to do. As I said, if the gun's quite soiled on the outside, you can take your towel and a bit of cleaner and then wipe it off over the outside, and it will bring everything up to a nice clean finish. I hope that's helped some of you get a rough idea of what you need to do. As I said at the beginning of the video, there are people that probably do it differently, lube different areas differently, but this is how I've done it ever since I've owned the gun, and it's never failed me since. So I hope some of you have found this informative. Please let me know, and hope to see you soon. Cheers, bye bye now.